Antarctica is the coldest place on our planet. It is a desert of white silence, where the wind can freeze a drop of water before it hits the ground. By every law of biology, this continent is a graveyard. But if we dig beneath 2 miles of solid ice, we find something that shouldn't exist. Buried in the frozen rock are the remains of a giant, steaming jungle. 90 million years ago, the South Pole was green. It was a world of suffocating heat, filled with massive trees and predators that survived in the shadows. This was not just a forest. It was a biological contradiction. How did giant life forms survive on a continent that disappears into total darkness for 4 months every year? Today, we examine the hidden cost of living at the end of the world. To understand how Antarctica was once a greenhouse, we must look at the Earth as a machine. Millions of years ago, the atmosphere was thick with carbon dioxide, nearly 3 times higher than it is today. This created a heat shield that pushed tropical weather all the way to the poles. But biology has a limit. Even in a world without ice, the Earth's tilt remains the same. This meant that while the Antarctic was warm, it was still trapped within the polar circle. For 1/3 of the year, the sun never rose. Imagine a jungle filled with life plunged into a midnight that lasts for 120 days. How does an ecosystem maintain its metabolism without the sun? Recent research into fossilized wood gives us a clue. Microscopic analysis of tree rings found at the South Pole reveals a strange pattern. These trees grew at an incredible speed during the summer, but then they stopped completely. Most trees in the world grow slowly all year, but these Antarctic giants learned to turn off. They entered a state of dormancy, a deep sleep that allowed them to survive without photosynthesis. But for the animals, sleeping wasn't an option. They had to eat. Among the shadows of this dark forest lived a king, Cryolophosaurus, a meat-eater 20 feet long with a strange crest on its head. But being a giant in a dark world has a price. Field research on the bones of these dinosaurs shows a pattern of stunted growth. Scientists found that these predators didn't grow at a steady rate. Instead, their growth would stop during the dark winters. When the food disappeared and the jungle went silent, their bodies had to slow down just to stay alive. They were giants living on the edge of starvation. Every calorie was a battle. Every hunt was a risk. Could a predator this size truly sustain itself in the blackness? Nature always finds an evolutionary trade-off. While the land was a struggle, the rivers held a different kind of monster. This was the home of Koolasuchus. It was a giant amphibian, shaped like a salamander but the size of a car. It had a massive, flat head and jaws that could crush bone. In the rest of the world, crocodiles were the supreme hunters. But crocodiles have a physical limit. They are cold-blooded and require the sun to warm their bodies. In the Antarctic, even in a greenhouse world, the Antarctic water was too chilly for a crocodile to survive. Geological evidence suggests that the Koolasuchus used this cold as a shield. Because it could handle the lower temperatures, it found a cold refuge where crocodiles couldn't follow. It owned the Antarctic rivers because it was the only thing that could move in the dark. This is the law of adaptation. To keep the territory, you must be willing to endure the conditions that kill your rivals. But as the trees and animals grew, they hit a mathematical ceiling. This is the square cube law. It is one of the most unforgiving laws of physics. As an organism grows twice as tall, its weight doesn't just double, it triples and quadruples. In the Antarctic jungle, the trees grew to massive heights to catch the summer sun. But as they got larger, their own weight became a threat. Laboratory stress tests on similar wood structures show that there is a point where a tree's height will cause its base to crush itself. Even in a world of giants, nature sets a ceiling on scale. Nothing can grow forever. For the smaller creatures, survival was not about size. It was about senses. One small dinosaur called Cryolophosaurus evolved a feature that changed the game of survival. It had giant, glowing eyes. Laboratory scans of their fossilized skulls show that they had massive optic lobes, the part of the brain used for seeing. They didn't just survive the dark, they could see through it. They became the ghosts of the Antarctic winter. But evolution is an arms race. What happens when the hunter also learns to see in the dark? The fossil record shows a constant struggle of sensory adaptation. The jungle became a battlefield of vision, where the animal with the best eyes was the one that survived until spring. As we look at the fossils, we must ask, why is this world gone? The jungle didn't die because of a sudden catastrophe. It died because the continent moved. Antarctica was once connected to South America and Australia. It was part of a great landmass that shared warmth. But tectonic plates are always moving. Antarctica drifted south into the center of the polar sea. Recent studies in oceanography show that once Antarctica was alone, a massive current of cold water began to circle it. This is the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. It acted like a thermal fence, a wall of cold that blocked the warm tropical water from reaching the coast. The jungle was trapped. The trees that had survived for millions of years began to wither. The giant amphibians in the rivers were encased in ice. The greenhouse was replaced by a tomb. This is the deeper truth of our planet. Nature does not create giants without consequence. The Antarctic jungle was a masterpiece of biology, but it was built on a foundation that was shifting. Every advantage, from the large eyes of the Cryolophosaurus to the cold tolerance of the Koolasuchus, carried a cost. When the environment changed, the cost became too high to pay. In the modern world, we see Antarctica as a wasteland of ice, but the fossils tell us a different story. They tell us that life is persistent, but it is also fragile. Evolution can build a jungle at the bottom of the world, but it can also take it away. We are walking on the remains of a world that hit its limit. As we stand on the ice today, we realize that survival is never a guarantee. The ice always returns. The Earth is a machine that recycles itself, turning jungles into glaciers and giants into dust. Every leaf found in the frozen rock is a reminder that nature's laws are final. The scan of history is complete. Antarctica was once a jungle, but in the end, the cold always wins.